Have you ever noticed how top performing reps always seem to be cool, calm, and collected? It's like nothing phases them, whether they're behind on their monthly or quarterly target, or they've had a difficult phone call with a prospect or a customer. They always just seem to be in control, chaos free, confident, and believing in the process. Reps like that have high emotional intelligence. And in general, it seems to me that high performing reps have high emotional intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence is simply the capacity to understand and control your own emotions and the emotions of other people around you. So it sounds very simple, but it is something that's very difficult, of course. I do believe that, like many things in life, some people are born with a higher emotional intelligence than others. However, it is still a skill that can be developed and improved upon over time. What's interesting to me is that having a higher emotional intelligence seems to be a real differentiator between average sales development reps, business development reps, and sales reps, and those top performing individuals. However, it is not something that we hear very much about when we go through any training or sales enablement. I'm not sure why this is, but my theory is that the reason is because it is difficult to develop and improve your emotional intelligence, because it is something that needs to be done over years with a lot of consistency of effort and practice. So there's no quick fix to developing higher emotional intelligence. However, as we know, I believe that sales development is a time where you can hone your skills and develop things that are going to really benefit you as an SDR, but also throughout your entire sales career. And I think one of the most important things that we can focus on beginning to develop is emotional intelligence. Now, you probably will hear me mention this a lot during my trainings, because it is something that I think is really, really crucial and is something that we can actually move the dial on. As I said, it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of practice, but I do have 3 steps for how you can actually get started with this today and build it into your daily, weekly, and monthly practice to help you over time elevate yourself above average and move towards being a top performer. So the first thing that we want to do to develop emotional intelligence is identify your triggers. Now, if you've never heard of the concept of emotional intelligence before and you don't understand what it means, then yes, it might be difficult for you to identify your triggers. However, for me, the easiest way for me to help you to understand what might be an emotional trigger or emotional response during your prospecting or your customer calls or your prospect calls is whenever you feel uncomfortable to the point where it is impacting your performance. So uncomfortable can be a range of emotions. It can be nervous, it can be anxious, it can be unsure, you can be fearful. Sometimes people are even afraid of making phone calls, cold calls, for example, to the point where it is actually impacting your performance. So it is making it more difficult for you to achieve what you are trying to achieve. It can also be where it feels like something takes over to the point that you are not able to do what you wanted to do. So for example, if you get really excited when somebody says yes on a cold call and you start to talk really fast and you forget some of the things that you need to share with them, and then you get off the call and you realize that you've booked in a meeting but you've forgotten to confirm their email address. So now you actually can't send them the invite, because in that state your emotion of excitement took over and you actually forgot some of the key things that you need to do in order to secure the meeting. So emotional disruptions can be positive emotions like excitement and happiness, or they can be more negative emotions like anxiety and nervousness. But what we want to do is identify what triggers those emotions for us and when those triggers show up. So I've already given some examples of how they might show up on a cold call, but there's a lot of other areas throughout the SDR life where emotional triggers do show up. The second thing that we want to do is, once we have identified what some of our triggers are, we need to create a strategy for managing those emotions so that we can minimize or reduce the impact that they have. I don't think that there is any situation where you're going to remove those emotions altogether, and that's okay because we don't want to completely dehumanize every interaction. However, being able to minimize them to a point where they are actually working in your favor and not negatively impacting your work, making you forget things, causing you to just wish that a cold call will be over because it feels so uncomfortable, and so on. Now, unfortunately, there's no simple way for me to tell you how you can manage to minimize those emotions, because again, they are different for everybody and they feel different for everybody. But once you have identified what your triggers are, there are a number of things that you can try to see if that will help you to manage your emotions. So some common things that pop up are, taking some deep breaths. All right. So if you're in the middle of a cold call and you get an objection and it makes you feel very nervous and unsettled, just taking a pause and taking a couple of deep breaths maybe will help you to regain your composure and manage that emotion. Another one is often just taking a pause. So for example, if you're in a conversation and you have a tendency to get excited and talk more quickly and so on and so forth, maybe just reminding yourself that before you start speaking, you're just going to take a pause of about 1 or 2 seconds, which again will help you just to regain your composure, control that tendency to get excited and run away with the phone call, and bring you back in control. There are lots of other things that, depending on the situation, you can try. Like, for example, I know that some people, if it's appropriate in the situation, would like to, take a step back, take a pause. Some people do some grounding activities, such as tapping each finger off their thumb. If you had an elastic band, some people like to just flick the elastic band on their wrist, because these are all just grounding activities that help to remind you to regain your composure and not let your emotion take over. As I mentioned, this will be completely up to you, because what will work for one person will not work for another, and you will not know what works for you until you do some trial and error. However, identifying the triggers and starting to create a strategy for managing them allows you to start building your muscle of emotional intelligence, helping you to be more in control and not being controlled by those emotions. And the third and final step, as boring as it may be, is to practice. Because if you decide, okay, I'm going to start pausing so that I don't get so excited, the first time you try to do that, you're not going to be 100% successful. But over time, with consistent effort, if you are doing that, you will start to improve your results. You will start to maintain your composure. And later on, when you have mastered these basics, you will actually be able to not only be aware of and control your own emotions, but actually be aware of other people's emotions and use those natural human reactions to your advantage in a way that will help you to get what you want, and also to deliver value and give the prospect what potentially they want. So to recap, emotional intelligence is one of the key differentiators between average sales reps and high performing sales reps. It is something that takes a lot of time and effort to develop, but you can start today, and you can start small by simply identifying what your common triggers are across every aspect of your role as an SDR, BDR, or salesperson, and then creating a strategy to manage those different triggers and then implementing that strategy, actually practicing, tweaking if you need to change something, and keeping what's working by practicing and developing that over the weeks, months, and years to come. So for now, I will say good luck. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video, and I will see you very soon.